I love it. Dennis Wheeler, notes, formal outline. Now, on January 28th, 1986, I stayed home from kindergarten because I had an earache, but at 8:39 in the morning, that morning, I had a heartache as well. The Space Shuttle Challenger had exploded upon takeoff, and the deaths of 7 brave people are etched in my brain now. And it's strange now that I look back at it, because all I really remember is asking my mom, are they going to be okay, and not getting an answer. Now, I say that to say this. That is the night that I was introduced to the president of 1982. His name was Ronald Reagan. Now, I can't say I was glued to the TV all day. Certain things went on as normal, and we didn't have cable and so on. But that night, when the president came on TV, not to deliver the State of the Union address, but to deliver the address he wrote for to address the disaster, he closed with a line from a poem. The poem was called High Flight, and it touched me, even at 5 years old. Now, there are those out there that say that Reagan's life can be divided into 7 chapters. He was a radio announcer, a movie star, a union boss, a television host, a state governor, a political critic, and then President of the United States. But to me, he was the guy that spoke to a little boy through the TV on a cold January night and helped me cope with the loss of my heroes. Now, the Internet Movie Database, IMDb, says that Ronald Reagan is arguably the most successful actor in history. He began his career in radio and moved on to acting, and like many of his contemporaries did that. He starred in 79 separate titles, and that number's a little misleading because most of it was episodic in nature. He still didn't star in as many roles as Christopher Lee, who has 280 different acting credits, and is arguably the most prolific actor in history, as far as the number of titles. But also, Reagan never won any awards. Okay. He was given a Citizenship Golden Globe in 1957 and then got a star on the Walk of Fame in 1960, but no major awards. Now, as he aged, he began to take fewer and fewer acting jobs and instead started acting as a host of programs where he wore a suit and talked in front of a camera, which is an omen of things to come. During the early years of his public eye, he did show some political leanings. Served as president of the Screen Actors Guild twice, once in 1947 and that ended in 1952, and then a second time in 1959 to 60. But the earlier time was one of the most tumultuous times politically in Hollywood history. It's the era of McCarthyism and the Hollywood blacklist, the list that said that certain actors, directors, and screenwriters couldn't work based on their political leanings. He was the person that was in charge during that time and had to handle all of that mess. Now, it is amusing, though, that even this early in his career, Reagan was dealing with a supposed communist threat. He went on to serve 2 terms as governor of California. There's a button right there of his campaign. But if we talked about the governorship, we wouldn't get to talk about anything else because it's a very long story. If you have any questions about that, you can ask me later. I'll be happy to answer. But you can safely assume that it showed that Mr. Reagan here was adept at skewing voters across party lines because California is primarily a democratically controlled state, and he is definitely a Republican. His presidency, like all presidencies, have their ups and downs, but he's remembered today, though, not so much for his policies as he is for his ability to bring people together. And there's no doubt that Reagan was a gifted speaker. This is certain. Of course, he had a lot of practice, which we've gone over earlier. Without his years as an actor, as a spokesperson, or even as a politician at the state level, I wouldn't be talking about him today. The things he learned, though, the skills that he used to such great effect, can be understood. Now, you have to a certain degree, great communicators, the truly great ones, are born, not made. But everyone can take some of the Reagan lessons to heart. I mean, what exactly made him so effective? First, when he spoke, he was always clear. He spoke so that the common person could and would follow. And this doesn't mean he dumbed down his language. More, he spoke informally. so that like we would speak in the living room. Everyone would gather around, we talk about the issues and how we plan to deal with them. He also made his speeches memorable. He was a master at using the one-liner to drive his point home. He didn't say, President Gorbachev, please allow the German people to unify the city of Berlin as it would be beneficial to all parties. No, he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And there he is doing it right there. That's in front of the Brandenburg Gate. He said it clearly and with emotion. Now, even the best of us, though, can't win everyone over. There will always be those who cannot or will not like us, and how we deal with those people can come to be a defining characteristic of us. Reagan was asked by a detractor once, whenever he was running for president, why an actor should be president. And so he responded with, well, aren't all presidents actors? And that's humorous, mildly. Not a lot funny, but a little funny. And it answered his question, and it diverted the attention away from the detractor and more back to Reagan. And they'll never let it be said that Ronald Reagan was afraid of a good joke. Laughing sets people at ease, and people are more receptive to this information whenever they're at ease. Now, not everything about communicating is what is said. How things are said is every bit as important. And let's take it again. Here's Reagan at the Brandenburg Gate. He's standing up tall, leaning into it, and speaking with a clear, raised voice. Now, if you could hear the speech, you'd understand. But he's raising his voice, implying the emotion at the core of his words, and also to be heard over the top of the loudspeakers that are blaring nonsense behind it that the East Germans were blaring, because they were trying to drown him out. But he continued on. Just as important now as what is said and how it's said is the image of the person saying it, how he looks, what he does, who he does it with. Now, a president needs credibility. Now, here's a picture of his family. Reagan projected himself as a down-to-earth guy. Notice that they aren't in a fancy building and we're in front of a fancy building or wearing any formal clothes. They're just regular people. There's grandkids there in front of them. He's just a regular guy. The president also needs to be reliable. You have to count on him. Now, take, for example, his hair. This is whenever he's very young here in this picture. A little bit older. A little bit older still. Still a little bit older. That's a guy who had the same haircut for nearly 80 years. You always knew what you were going to get with Reagan. Now, finally, a president needs to be trustworthy. They have to have good character. And no one is as good a character as a dog. And so I'd like to introduce to you Rex. That's the president's dog. So yes, Reagan was a great communicator. He earned himself the name the Great Communicator, and it wasn't sarcasm. He was an actor, yes, and he earned what is arguably the greatest role ever attained, and he did this while being a regular guy with a wife and a family and a dog. The regular guy, this one, changed the course of the world, though, through his thoughts and his deeds. But even more important, to me at least, was that he was there to comfort and console me, as well as all the children of 1986 who had to watch as our heroes perished. We lost many heroes that day, but we gained a new one. Thank you very much.